Welcome to today's Seidokan Saturday. I'm going to do this at the first instead of at the end. Like, share, subscribe, ask questions, make comments, so forth. This is merely for demonstration purposes. It's not a full instructional. Again, for those who are using these videos for whatever purpose, and thankfully the 80 or so of you out there who actually are liking these or subscribe to the channel, thank you for that. But mostly they're just a reference. So I may not always do a technique full out or whatever, but it's for those who are instructing or wanting to do something similar to how I approach things in my dojo, more as a reference point than as a complete how-to. But I try to include some how-to in there, but if I shortcut a technique or walk through it, like when I do the test review walkthroughs, again, understand those are just for memory. We want to put a little bit more into it when we actually perform. For example, if I'm just training kata, for instance, for fighting purposes, I may do, my stance might merely be here. If I'm doing it for my personal training, and again, we did this just last night in my adult class, sometimes I'll emphasize getting a little bit more dynamic and wide and low and more demonstrate-y than combat-y, demonstrate-ish, combat-ish, whatever, however you want to look at that. But the lower, longer, more powerful, more fully chambered kick, more, how do I want to put it, more exaggerated prep positions, maybe higher kicks in some cases. But as most Okinawan stylists will tell you, up until the last 50 years or so, almost all kicks were done belly button and below, because kicking higher than that was not considered safe, effective, especially when you're on unstable ground. It also makes your leg easier to catch. It's a high-risk, high-reward move that has come into the martial arts, brought in again from French savate. So there are some differences in how I may present things here versus the actual teaching methodology. And again, if you're, and this is probably 99.999% of the people in the world, if you're a better martial artist than I am and you want to go to more extremes, please do. I don't kick as high as I used to. I've got bursitis and arthritis in this hip, so occasionally I might feel a little bit squirrely and loose, but some days it won't do what it used to do. So until I get surgery on my hip, I'm limited with certain things. So that said and out of the way, today, moving on with our double techniques for the 6th kyu, Rokyu, green belt in my dojo. I believe it's a yellow belt at Ronnie's dojo. Everybody will have their own belt color, but it's the 6th kyu level for my students. Combinations. Okay, so the next one in our sequence, and again, these are examples. You can combine any block with any kick, but as I stated last week, the purpose is to put a defense, offense together rapidly, as quickly as possible. It's not done nearly enough in combative arts. Most will simply parry and soft and then counter, or they'll skip or they'll dodge and counter, as opposed to actually attack the limb and then follow up strongly with a technique. So that's why I put these together. Any block, any kick will do, but these are the ones I require as a training template, guideline for how to do that. All right, go back, watch last week's, you'll get more of that idea. Today's combination is uke with Yoko Geri. Uke, Yoko Geri. As usual, we'll practice it here in place first. When doing opposite side, and this will make more sense when we go into the moving and the kumite kamai, the sparring stance position, we will do high block with this hand, but then come up with the opposite leg for our thrusting kick, and then the same thing here, opposite hand, opposite leg with the thrust kick. Now here's where that's going to make some sense. Starting from shikodachi, we're going to be in our formal postures, Okay, shikodachi, age-uke. So the person is attacking. Maybe I better do it from the side. Person is attacking me, right? I'm just standing here minding my own friggin' business. Jerkwad gets in my face. I come back. If he's still in that same proximity and not charging, which is actually a more likely scenario, he's pushing this way. If I high block here and the person is charging and I full chamber to a side kick, I'm going to get knocked back, more likely than not. So as he's attacking, I do want to do a solid, powerful block. This block is attacking his limb, okay? It's not just rolling up and rolling past. It's not a soft, passive thing. This move is to strike his jaw, his wrist, his forearm, his brachial artery, wherever I can hit as hard as I can hit, okay? So when that attack comes, bam, I want that to be with some force. And then in that same range, as quickly as possible, with my foot aligned this position, and without turning my hip where I have a weaker balance position relative to him, I'm going to high block and quickly snap kick right out of my chamber, okay? And we do that on both sides. So I go age-uke, Yoko Geri, keage, back to neutral, age-uke, Yoko Geri, keage, back to neutral. And we can do that walking the floor as well. The other version would be if he comes in with an attack and maybe, with any luck, I pound that hard enough that I get some distance or some pause, then I can throw the full side thrust kick, either front leg or back leg, but for just to make it different and to practice both scenarios, I'm going to do my high block here powerfully, and then my weight's going to be moving forward as I throw the side thrust kick. So those are the two variations, okay? And again, from the front, then we would practice from neutral, high block, side thrust kick coming forward, and then the other side, high block, side thrust kick coming forward. Those two variations, all right? Now, we're going to put them, as last week, more in kumite, because the idea is that I want to be able to move with these and transition from my light footwork, whether it's set wrestling. Every fighting style has different footwork. Because in Seidokan we grapple and we throw, there is judo-like footwork with our change body, our sabaki movement, where I set and twist. That's very much the way judo sets up to do throws. Because we do finishes after the throws, we also do wrestling type positions, which is very much our shikodachi as we wrestle. But then we also semi-box-ish, okay? And if you watch a lot of Sensei Nix's videos, he does a lot of kickbox approach, almost like an MMA type approach to the standing game of fighting, and the footwork is very good, and they're light on their feet. Carvajal Sensei does a lot of traditional tournaments where they'll work from the bouncing front fighting stance. So whatever your fighting stance, kumite kamai, whatever your combat stance is, whether I'm more static and plodding, not plotting, plodding, sort of gauging, or whether I'm in free form, full motion, whichever footwork or stance you're working from. All right. So we're going to start from there. The attack comes, and again, the ideas go from defense to offense. So I shift, quick, boom. I'm momentarily in shikodachi, very momentarily. Again, go way back to my video on stances, where hopefully, if you've seen that, you understand that a stance is not a static posture that we lock ourselves into. It's a position that we maybe hit for a second or transition even through the stance on the way to the next movement. So even if I'm doing, for example, my front fighting stance here, being light on my feet, when I punch, I'm very much locked in Zenkutsudachi. Same concept. All right, so we're in whatever our fighting stance is. We shift and block, and then immediately come out of this into the kick and right back again into mobility, where I can move around the floor. Block, kick, right away back into my stance. That's the concept that we want to work toward at the blue belt level. And then the same thing with side thrust kick. So again, I'm moving, whatever my particular footwork is, hakwa, walking the circle, right? Whatever my footwork is, when the attack comes, I block, thrust kick, right away. We're moving, we're dodging, I block, side thrust kick, right away. So those are the levels from standing to kata-esque, locked in place, so that when I do transition through my stances, they're where they should be at that instant in time, and then back to movement. That's our technique for today. Uke, Yoko Geri, or kekomi, whichever version you're doing. Thanks for joining as always for our Seidokan Saturday high block side kick. Next week, next block and kick combo, and we move on. I already said to like, share, subscribe, so all that's left to be said is, until next week, as always, keep practicing.